Welcome to Frickety Frack. We do talk back. Thank you for joining me this episode. My name is Patrick, and I'm Frack. Frickety Frack, We Do Talk Back is a show where I discuss different aspects of fandom and how they relate to the gospel. And so I'm going to be going through an episode of Bleach, 1,000-Year Blood War, and connected to lessons from the Bible. I'll be continuing studying 1,000-Year Blood War until the conclusion of this season, part 2, the separation story arc. And I'll go in a different direction when this season comes to an end. And it could be anything else, ranging from another anime, comic books, movies. If you can be a fan of it, I can talk about it. So the name of the show came from my dad, who dubbed my brother and me Frick and Frack since we were kids. So we're going to be looking over the episode Too Early to Win, Too Late to Know. And so the main focus of this episode is Squad Zero and the Royal Guard of Yawaba facing off against one another. But in between all of this, we get a glimpse of Ichigo and the rest of his crew heading to the Soul Palace. Ganju shows up, and he travels with them. And so Orihime guides them in a flashback of how this was very similar to how they had traveled way back when they first traveled to the Soul Society to go rescue Rukia. And so Ichigo, they all have their flashbacks to this because it's Ichigo, Yoruichi, Chad, Orihime, Ganju, and they recognize that they are missing Uryu, and they do vow that they are going to work their hardest to get Uryu back. And but Ichigo, being the stubborn person that he is, says, "Look, well, that's just secondary. The first priority is beating Yawaba." So, like I said, so the main focus of this episode is the fight between Squad Zero and the Royal Guard of Yawaba. And so I'm going to try to say, once again, as a giant preface, I am terrible at saying these names. And so the members of Squad Zero are Ichibe Hyosube, Tenjiro Kirinji, Kirio Hikifune, Uetsu Nehemiah, and then Senjumaru Shitara. And so they are the members of Squad Zero. They are considered the 5 most powerful Soul Reapers. And so then they face off against the Stern Ritter Royal Guard, and that is Lily Barrow, Gerard Valkyrie, Askin Naklavar, Pernita Pardonjas. And so this group is known as the Schutzstaffel. And so during this, we see Yawaba and Uryu and Hashibath land in the Soul Palace, and Senjumaru is the one who encounters them first and deals with the combat initially. She uses a lot of different kinds of guards. These are basically like cannon fodder, but they get killed by Nyanzel Weisel, who has the Sternritter power of W. But eventually, as he goes through those guards, Senjumaru kind of lulls him into a false sense of security and kills him off. And that's when Yawaba calls out the Royal Guard, and they use their skills, and which leads to a very surprising death, where they seemingly kill Senjumaru by blowing a reishi bullet through her head. Of course, we come to find out that this was all an illusion of some kind, and Senjumaru is okay, and Senjumaru was just distracting all of them so that Kirio, she had put them in a womb prison, which was a giant wooden cage that grows around them to keep them in place. And so then the other members of Squad Zero appear, and Uetsu, he becomes the main combatant in this, where we had seen some, other members of the Royal Guard of Yawaba, the Schutzstaffel, do some combat, but Uetsu goes through them easily. The only one who manages to dodge is Askin, but he is still wounded and falls to the ground, and then Uetsu then kills him while swinging on the ground. There's absolutely no mercy shown to these members in any form or fashion, and it's really cool because we get to see Uetsu talk about he goes from I love this, he goes from this hip hoppy kind of goofy character, but then he just turns on a dime to being this ultra killer, and it's just really great. I love seeing that kind of switch in his character because he calls himself the god of the sword, and so he is the one who creates all of the Zanpakuto, and so he's using a Zanpakuto that cuts everything it comes in contact with, that it cuts things so well that it cannot even be sheathed. And so during all this, they're fighting, and then Yawaba throws the medallion, and he escapes the womb prison that Kiryu had created, and comes face to face with Ichibi. And so this is reminiscent to the beginning of the episode, because Ichibi is considered the leader of Squad Zero, and he, on behalf of the Soul King, was trying to broker peace with Yawaba, and the two, it does not go well. He says, like, have fun with the Vandenreich, and the Soul Society will all prosper together, as long as we can find this balance. And Yawaba wasn't going to have any of that, and so the two clash at that point. And so it's one of those interesting things where we get to see this, and we get to see, Ichibe has been playing a very prominent role in all this, but now we get to see more of him, and I do love his appearance and his bright-eyed, because he looks like this very optimistic person, but I think below all of that, he's actually that's kind of could be a very much of a facade, and he could be, it's just interesting. I really love seeing this, and so this is one of those episodes where we get to see we're going to be seeing all these new abilities, new fighters, and it's not the usual fare of Byakuya, Renji, Rukia, and Ikaku, because they've done theirs, so we're getting to see some brand new stuff. I'm really excited about that. So let's talk about the biblical theme for this episode. So this is Proverbs chapter 16, verse 18, and this is what this says: pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. So I chose this proverb because the main defense so far in the fight with Squad Zero against the Royal Guard of Yawaba is coming from misdirection, so they could just set up a prison, and that prison is then set up to give the Squad Zero the optimum fighting environment. And so before that even happens, the Royal Guard, they kind of have this very proud and arrogant situation as they go, they set themselves up and saying, like, all right, well, this is going to be easy because we're, just that amazing. And then as Squad Zero sets up their prison and sets up their optimal environment, they kind of jockey and for position and brag about their own skills. So it's one of those things where, I see all of this going back and forth, that there is a lot of pride between Squad Zero and the Royal Guard. And so this takes us back to the proverb: pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. And so, they have their own way of setting themselves up, and so can't wait to see what happens on how the Schutzstaffel turn the table on Squad Zero, because as we know, Ichigo is the main character of Bleach. So if he's not involved, then what's going to happen? And so for us as Christian, I struggle with this idea of an over domineering attitude and plays and pride in our skills. Now, I'm not saying that pride in your skills is a bad thing, but to the point of arrogance. So I want to applaud at the time of this recording. Just recently, something had happened where the Miami Dolphins had a very dominating win over the Denver Broncos. They had the opportunity to score a scoring record for the most points scored by one team in a single game. Instead, the coach chose to have them kneel the rest of the game out. They could have scored 73 points and broken the record. And so I love that. I love that the coach decided to do that instead of, cementing their team. Now, should he have done it? I don't know. That, for any Miami Dolphin fans out there, you take that up with your own organization and your own team. I personally don't have a dog in the fight. But I want to recognize the restraint instead of just, running up the score constantly. And so I love seeing that. I remember in my own time as a water polo player that there were times when we would be getting really far ahead of our opponent, and I was a starter for quite a bit of it, and so I would get pulled, and so would many of my friends. We'd be like, all right, let's we got to get our other teammates minutes and reps and working out plays and things like that. And so then there are times when our coach would have us be like, okay, well, you need to pass more than 3 or 4 times before anyone can shoot the ball. And so we would do that. We would listen to coach and do that. And so I want to put this out there for us as Christians, is that there are times when we can be really proud of who we are, and we have to show restraint, because we are called as Christians. Each one of us are called to humility, that no matter what we are doing, whatever it is that we are facing, it is called to be in a humble spirit. And so as this episode has just begun, the fight between Squad Zero and the Royal Guard, the Schutzstaffel, I'll be interested to see where this fight takes us, especially with Yawaba having escaped the prison. So we'll just have to see what happens. And so for us as Christians, we also need to remember to keep our pride in check, and remember that we're not supposed to be bringing glory to ourselves, but bringing glory to God. And so I will encourage you in that take the opportunity that when things go right, glorify God, but also when things go wrong, glorify God, because that defeats our enemies in that way, that if they are to gloat over us a victory of some kind where we fail or don't live up to expectations, but instead we glorify God even in our failures, that brings a great moment and a victory to God even in that. So I want to encourage you in that moment. All right, so let me rate this episode. So in this episode, it is clear that the fight with the Royal Guard is not over, and because it's just not that simple, especially in any form of shonen anime, and Bleach as well. I'll be interested to see what happens, and so because of all the newness, I was really excited about this episode. I can't wait to see more and more of the combat that is to come. So because of the excitement level, because of the tease, I'm going to give it a 4.75. It's just shy of perfect. It's because I want to see more so much that I wish we had seen more of what everyone else was going to do. And so just just shy of being perfect, because it's a great episode, and I am looking forward to the next one. I am so looking forward to the next part of this story and to see what happens. So it's 4.75. It's just like, I wish there was like 5 minutes more just to set up more of the action. And so that's why it's 4.75. All right, so anyone with questions for me about the biblical lesson that I talked about in this episode, or any other discussion ranging from anime, comics, or just anything in general, feel free to email me at frickityfracktalkback@gmail.com, or reach out to me on X at frickityf, or at frickityfrack on Instagram and Facebook. So please rate, review, and subscribe. Leave a comment below in the comments. If you have any questions, I do my best to answer them quickly. So feel free to make a comment in the YouTube comment below. But if you are listening to this on Spotify or wherever you get podcasts, make sure you rate, review, and subscribe, all that fun stuff. Remember that I love you. Most importantly, God loves you. And go release your Bankai.